Hello everyone, Des Kelly here from GMIT Letterfrack and welcome along to another of our SoliDWorks video tutorials. Just before we get started, if you'd like any more information on the degree programs we offer in furniture design, wood technology or teacher education, then please see our Facebook and Twitter pages. So this is the project we're going to work on. It's a Halloween pumpkin and the features we're going to cover are some sketching and some sketch pictures. We're going to use a lot of reference planes to set everything up just right. We're going to use the convert entities feature to make sure we can cut down on the work. We'll draw one curve rather than 36 in this case. We're going to use the loft feature, a circular pattern. We're going to use a lot of sketching 3-point arcs and extruded cut to cut out the features on the face, and then the dome feature as part of the stalk. Now I should say that we're going to stop short of actually rendering this project in this video, but I will complete and upload another video showing how to apply the proper material appearances, to set the lighting, and also to generate the photorealistic rendering that you see here. Okay, so let's begin. And to start this part, we're going to open up a new part file, and in that we're going to start a new sketch on the front plane. And we want to bring in a sketch picture to use as a reference. So we go to Tools, Sketch Tools, and Sketch Picture. Simply browse and double click a picture. In this case, I have downloaded one from the internet. To move the picture, you simply click and drag anywhere within its frame. And to resize it, you can either use these corner drag handles or this new feature, this pink and blue line. If I drag this pink point to the bottom of the pumpkin there and the pink arrow to the top of the pumpkin and let go, this dialog box will appear prompting me to enter a value for that line. So if I type in 300, enter, it will now resize the picture so that reference line, that blue pink line, will be 300. While I'm here, I always like to hit full image and set the transparency of the picture just so it's not that overpowering. Press the green tick to close the sketch picture. So just before we actually trace around the profile of the pumpkin, let's position it a little more neatly with respect to the origin and the planes of reference. So to activate the sketch picture again, simply double click it, and then you can click and drag anywhere within the frame and drag that bottom point approximately onto the origin like that. Remember, this blue line is just a reference line, it's not actually a piece of geometry. So press the green tick to approve that, and let's begin. So I'm going to start off with a line, and I will snap that onto the origin and just go vertically, but stop short of the top of the pumpkin there. And I'll use a spline tool, but rather than picking a series of points along the outer curvature, I'll just pick 3. I'm going to start at the top of the line, the furthest point out there at the curved side of the pumpkin, and also at the bottom of the line. Then right click and select to close the spline. Now I will click the spline to activate the drag handles and then drag them like that to adjust the curvature. If you can't get it just right, then select the arrow to lengthen the spline to give you more spline to work with. So it takes a bit of practice, but if you drag the diamond of the drag handle, it steers and adjusts the direction of the spline. Dragging the diamond, as I said, gives you more or less of the spline to work with. So you can see at the top here, that's not a mistake. I don't want to follow the curvature of my picture in this case. I want the pumpkin to have this realistic dip into the top there. If for any reason you think you're gone a bit low, which I think I might have, just drag the point up a little and then make your adjustments. So that looks pretty good. So I'll approve that, and there I have a sketch. It's a sketch of the profile of one of these pumpkin segments. So now I want to add some reference planes. So to do so, I will go to Reference, Plane. My first reference will be front plane, so click on that. My next reference will be this vertical line, so click on that. And simply activate the angle command over here and make sure that says 15 degrees. Press OK. Green tick. So I actually want that plane over the other side, so I will just drag it by its drag handles like that. And while I'm at it, I'll create another one reference plane, select the front plane again, select this vertical line again, activate the angle command, but this time I will flip the offset to get me a plane going 15 degrees in the other direction. And once again, I'm going to drag the points, the handles of the plane out to where I want them, and that's perfect. So let's begin a sketch on one of these planes. Let's pick this first plane first of all and select sketch, and just to make doubly sure that the sketch is actually opened correctly, let's just call up a line command for a moment, and by selecting that line command it really makes sure the sketch is actually open on that plane. So I'm not actually going to draw anything with the line tool. I'm going to instead use the convert entities tool, and I will pick the curve and the line from the previous sketch, press the green tick, and they will be projected onto that plane. Close the sketch. Then we'll begin another sketch on this other plane. Select that plane, select sketch, just open a command to make sure it's definitely open, and select convert entities again. Once more, select the original sketch of the curve and the line and approve it. So now we actually have 3 sketches on 3 different planes. So let's close the last sketch. For neatness, I will right click this plane and hide it, right click this plane and hide it. And just to make this segment, this solid, we'll apply a lofted boss base feature. So features, lofted boss base, and click each of the profiles in turn. And when you're happy with that, approve the command, and we have, as I said, a 12th or 1 segment of the pumpkin. So to complete the main solid of the base of the pumpkin, let's use the circular pattern. Activate this top white box, turning it blue, to allow you to select this vertical line as the axis of rotation. Under features and faces, activate the top box to allow me to select the loft feature here. If that happens to be minimized, simply expand it and select loft 1. And make sure that you set this to 12 instances. And if I press the green tick to approve that, there I have the main solid of the base of the pumpkin. So now let's try and hollow it out. So to hollow it out, I'm going to use this section tool. Click that once. By default, it probably will pick the front plane, but if it has not, simply click the front plane over in the feature manager. Press the green tick to approve that for a moment. I'm now going to start a sketch of a line. I cannot actually pick this face because that is just a theoretical split. That face doesn't actually exist, so I can't click that surface. Instead, click the front plane on which to draw. Hit the space bar, normal to, and take your time and just draw the profile that you want to use for the scooping out or the inner portion of the pumpkin. Now you need not be too fussy about that. It's not critical to the render or anything, but try to get it approximately offset from the outside. So once you're happy with that sketch, again I just drew it using a spline, use another revolve feature, but this time use a revolved cut. Revolved cut. Select this vertical line as the axis of revolution, press the green tick to approve it, and you're set. You now have a hollow pumpkin. So let's try and remove the face from the pumpkin. To do that, we're going to begin a sketch on a new reference plane. Let's select the front plane as the reference and just make sure that that plane is not touching and it's a little bit away from the front of the actual pumpkin itself. So let's begin a sketch on that plane. Now, rather than just drawing this by eye, again I will use the tools, sketch picture command and find an image on the internet and bring that in to trace around, or come up with your own version, of course. What I'm going to do is make this picture transparent so I can see it a little more clearly. Full image, slide up the transparency, maybe a little less, and now I can resize that and fit that on just where I think it's going to look best. a little bigger, and I'm happy with that. So to cut out the eyes, nose and mouth of the pumpkin, I'm going to first of all close the sketch picture. For neatness, I'm going to right click and hide the plane, and I'm just going to start tracing around the image I brought in. To do that, I'm going to use the 3-point arc, which will allow me to select the first, the end, and then any point on the curvature of each of the lines. And I'm not going to try too hard to maintain symmetry from one side of the face to the other, because after all, this is supposed to be something that's hand carved, so I think it will look more realistic if it's not overly symmetrical. So in a moment I will just skip the video on to avoid repetition, but I'm just using the 3-point arc to draw every one of these portions. And you have to make sure that in this case you've got 4 closed loops. So the last line is just to close up the profile of that eye, and then you're set. I'll just try that again. I missed. There we go. So I have the sketch I'm after. What I can do now is simply extrude, cut it into the solid. So features, extruded cut, and select the sketch. Now rather than guessing where it's going to end, I'll simply extrude that up as far as the center, the mid plane. In our case, it's the front plane. So change blind in direction 1 to up to surface, and simply select the front plane and approve that. So there you have it. It's got the opening there. Just before we go on and draw the stalk, it looks better if you don't have too many sharp edges in an organic looking shape such as this. So let's use the fillet feature to apply a number of small radius fillets to all of the openings. So I'm actually going to do that in a couple of different passes. So I'm expecting this to fail at some point. If it accidentally fails, then you may have to go back and just use a slightly smaller radius fillet, but it's looking okay so far. Okay, that looks good. That also improves the quality of the render to come later. If you're rendering something that shouldn't really have very sharp edges, then ease the sharp corners there. So all that's left to do now is to model the stalk at the top of the pumpkin. So to do that, let's call up a section view first of all and approve it with the green tick. And let's go to Features, Reference Geometry Plane, and we'll use the top plane as a reference. And I want to position a plane so that it just cuts in here somewhere between the outer and inner portion of the pumpkin. So as you can see there, that plane does exactly that. So now I will turn off the section view again, and I will begin a sketch of a spline on that top plane. Press the spacebar and look 90 degrees to it, and then take a moment to draw an organic looking stalk-like shape on that plane. Now I could give measurements for this, but I don't want it to be something that is precisely defined. It's supposed to be organic, so it will grow in a semi-random shape as you see here. So approve that, and I want to loft that onto another plane. So I will go to Features, Reference Geometry Plane, select this plane as a reference, and let's put the new plane 60 mil above it, or 70 let's say. If I wanted, I could loft between these two planes, but just to make it a little more difficult, I'll hide this bottom plane first of all, and on the top plane I will sketch a center line just like that. And now that I have a plane and a center line, I can put in a new angled plane. So if I go to Features, Reference Geometry, Plane, select the plane, select the line, it will put in an angled plane around that line. So let's activate the angle over here, and again we leave it at 15 degrees, that looks okay. But now I can draw on this aligned plane, this angled plane. So I will right click and hide this plane at the bottom. I'll right click and hide the sketch out of my way, I don't need that anymore. And I'll begin another sketch of a spline on this plane. So draw another profile, but this time draw it a little smaller. This is going to represent the top of the stalk. Approve that. And we'll also hide that plane. And now we simply carry out a loft feature from one to the other. So Features, Lofted Boss Base, select the base profile, select the top profile. And it will loft between them. One other finishing touch you can do is to put a slight twist in that loft. And to do that, in the options, in the properties over here, you can see the start-end constraints. Simply change the start constraint to normal to profile, and the end constraint to normal to profile, and you can see the bend and twist it puts in the stalk. It makes it look much more realistic. So approve that, and all that's left to do is round over the top. Now you could do that with a fillet, but just to use a different feature, let's go to Insert, Features, Dome, select the top face. And it's highly unlikely that a complicated surface like this will allow a dome feature, so simply get over here and deselect Continuous Dome. It basically removes some of the constraints for tangency, and it allows a much more realistic and I suppose user-friendly dome feature. So press the green tick to approve that, and there you have the pumpkin. So thanks for watching, I hope you found it useful. To access the other video in which I will demonstrate how to apply the shadows, the lighting, the material properties and so on, you can access our GMIT Letterfrack YouTube channel. There you'll find all these other tutorials as well, which will cover a wide range of useful SoliDWorks features. So enjoy!